Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Today we have a brand new set of crazy stories for you to enjoy. But before we start, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Boss breaks his own policy and he pays the price. I work in the hospitality industry in a small town fed by tourists. This sadly leaves issues for businesses trying to find reliable employees. To try and incentivize those people to find work in town, every business is raising its wages to keep people who actually do their job. Even the Golden Arch Burger chain starts at $9 an hour. So when I got hired here, I went through all the paperwork, signed all the documents, reviewed all the policies of a business trying to act far more professional than it actually was. I was given policy booklets, signed that I read them, and set on my way through training. All is well for a while until the HR staff was cut. Now, as it goes in this particular business, any responsibility that could be taken on by the general manager is given to the general manager. He runs housekeeping, maintenance, grounds work, scheduling the dining and wait staff, hiring and firing. If you can think of an area behind the scenes, he runs it. He's also my direct boss. So I'm a good noodle. I work the night shift solo. I actually show up on days I'm scheduled. I show up on time. I do my job even. I've received nothing but positive reviews from my boss and his boss. We're not here to celebrate these achievements. We're here to celebrate what happened when I told him no. In the summer of last year, I was out of town picking up the girlfriend from the airport after she had a wonderful trip to Belize. We had a good weekend doing the things couples like to do, when right after eating my favorite pizza, I felt my stomach rejecting the food I'd eaten. The next dozen hours were brutal. I emptied more out of me than I thought my body could hold. Obviously, I was sick. I could barely pack my bags the next morning, let alone actually move them to the car. It's still bright and early, not long past dawn, when I realize I'm going to need a day to recover. So I contact my boss. I lay it out for him. And for the first time in over a year and a half, I let him know that my shift that night needs to be covered. The policy book I'd read, like a good employee, told me that calling in sick is okay. Calling in sick for one day doesn't require a note. Only the second and consecutive days would. I wouldn't have to go to a doctor for a note because it's only one day, so I can rest and come back in good as new. But I wouldn't be posting here if I got off work that easy, would I? He told me I'd either have to work or I'd have to get a doctor's note. After 18 months or more, never calling in sick, covering every shift I was asked to, he picks now to treat me like a child. All right, may as well. So I go to one of those urgent care clinics. Nurse gives me a 2-minute consultation, sends me out with a prescription-strength anti-nausea medication and 3 copies of a doctor's note, because you're damn right I'm keeping my own copy. I read the note and it states, OP is sick and cannot perform job duties for 5 days. Signed, Doc. Huh? Why not? I shoot him a picture of the note and radio silence. Now this man works 9 to 5. He doesn't work nights. I have another coworker who does my job on my days off, so I expect him to have been called in that night. After the radio silence, and since I was still up that night anyway, I prepared my 2 weeks' notice just in case they're going to try and make me work anyway. I go into work with a copy of the doctor's note and my notice to meet people at the shift change. To my surprise, I saw my boss, and he looked like crap. He looked at me, confused as to why I'm there. Before he spoke, I handed him the note, not my notice yet, and said, "Glad you're here, and hi, receptionist. Boss, here's a copy of my doctor's note. Figured I'd drop this off in person since you didn't reply to me the last 8 hours or so. Can I go home and rest now?" Boss, I can't believe you were actually sick. Guess I'll see you next week. Receptionist, hope you feel better. And with that, I left. The next several days were spent recovering, sleeping an ungodly amount. I'm really glad I listened to the doctor. The aftermath of this whole event isn't very exciting, but it was satisfying. The next Tuesday, a week after the incident, I was pulled into the office and asked why I requested so many days from the doc, how it hurt him to have to fill all those nights, etc. I gave him the honest reply. The doctor didn't ask how long I needed. I just asked for a doctor's note and was handed that. I still have a couple copies if you lost one. He started to protest, saying I should have corrected the doc, but I stopped him. Get a copy of the policy book, would you? He did. Turn to the attendance policy and read out the portion about sick days and doctor's notes. Boss. Oh. Me. Yup. So if you keep pestering me about this, I'm going to go to the owner and ask to be compensated for the cost of that clinic visit and ask that you be reprimanded for not following your own policies. Or you can let me do my job and not treat me like a child going forward. That spelled the end of the conversation, and I wasn't bothered again. Still gave my 2 weeks soon after, because screw that guy. And our next story. Director pulls the contract on the truck driver and quickly regrets it. At my old workplace, we had a truck driver. We'll call him Jim, for no particular reason. Our director had decided to cut down on the amount of manpower in the production unit to try and squeeze some more money out of it. One of the people laid off was a storage worker, and the director then wanted Jim to take over on storage and make the big truck more a whoever needs it uses it kind of thing, as opposed to having one man who mans it for the majority of the time. Though driving the truck only took about half of Jim's day, and the rest of the time, he did all kinds of other things around the company that needed doing. Maintenance, cleaning the yard, cutting the grass, etc. Now, my boss had made a fair fuss about this during the meetings where this was decided, since Jim being on that truck was a very good thing for the company. But alas, director didn't want to listen. They then had a meeting where Jim and the 3 people who were the likely candidates for using the truck were informed of the change. The storage worker had been fired the same day. Now, nobody was really happy about this. One of the practical problems is when you have multiple people using a tool, whether it's a hammer, a power drill, or a truck, it becomes a mess to coordinate. Who needs it when? Who handles what in regards to maintenance, and so on and so on. But none were more unhappy than Jim, and he quite openly said that storage worker wasn't his job, to which the director made one of many big mistakes in this whole streamlining process he was doing to the production unit. He pulled out the contract that had a highlighted work in the production bit. So what kind of MC does a PO'd former truck driver get up to? Well, glad you asked. Very simply, he stopped doing anything that wasn't related to production. Examples of minor things Jim stopped doing: buying basic groceries for the production office, milk, sugar, etc. He stopped bringing breakfast to the production workers. Jim drove to a local sandwich maker and picked up breakfast and lunch for most in the production, meaning that now everybody went there on their own, creating massive amounts of delay in every department maintaining order in the yard, so everything stored out there was easy to find and traffic could go through easily. But the very best thing he stopped was clearing away snow. You see, one of the many things Jim did was if there was a forecast for snow, he'd set an alarm for 4 a.m. only to look out the window, and if he needed to clear snow, he'd just go to work and make sure the snow was cleared and the road salted for when everybody else arrived, and that he also stopped. But this particular year, winter hit us pretty suddenly, so there was quite a bit of snow and ice all over the place, including the main office building's parking lot. Now, Jim, being the absolute champ that he was, had made sure that the production unit had been cleared, but left the main office building on the other side of the road to fend for itself. And since we in the production meet and earlier than the office people did, we could stand there and watch as they started arriving, and half their parking spots had so much snow in them they were unusable, and how their cars just skipped around on the ice under the snow. It was glorious. 3 cars were lightly damaged, and one took a pretty hefty hit as he clipped the corner of the concrete building, and no less than 9 people fell on the ice, including the director himself, which resulted in about 45 production workers standing inside our machine hall, almost peeing ourselves laughing. Edit. I forgot to mention a little fun thing later that day. An email was sent out across the whole company asking if anyone knew why the external contractor we hired to clear snow had stopped, apparently. The office nuts had no clue that it was Jim who cleared the snow for them every morning during the winter. And our last story. You need to return the company car by 4 p.m. Sure thing, boss. I can do that. This is not my story, but my cousin's. I'm the lucky one to tell it to you guys. Also, this story's about 5 years old, and he doesn't work for them anymore. My cousin worked as a driver for a big retail company, so he basically is the guy with the white van that transports merchandise between the warehouse and the stores. Because of the needs of the job, each driver serves more than one shop. He routinely ends up not finishing his route by home time, which is supposed to be 4 o'clock, so all the drivers get to keep the vans at home so they don't have to take them back to base. This was normal, and all drivers did this, which saved a lot of time and money for the company. One of the drivers won the national lottery, several million euros. He resigned on the spot and told the boss that if the company wants the van, they need to go by his house and pick it up. The CEO found out about this, so in order for this not to happen, he orders the drivers to have the vans to the warehouse by 4 or face the consequences, which basically meant lose your job. Drivers tried to argue, but the big boss was relentless. All drivers agree to comply to the letter. So the next day, my cousin does his rounds, but in order to take the van back by 4, he doesn't have time to do the last store. Also, he was late for the first delivery the day after, as he had to pick the van up from the base and do the delivery he didn't have time from the day before. Also, on day number 2, he didn't have time to deliver to 2 shops, as he had to take the van back by 4. In 2 days, all drivers were running late, and store managers were extremely unhappy as they couldn't restock on time, and complaints started to flood the management. Realizing that for this to work, he needed more drivers and more vans, he quietly retracted the order via the local management, and things went back to normal. This saga lasted for 2 whole days. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.